It has been an interesting offseason for the New Orleans Saints. New quarterback into the fold. The Saints have a decent roster. I think this might be their year to win that division again. We got our man Chris James talking to us today about New Orleans and everything the Saints. Let's get into this. Chris, what is going on, my man? How you doing?
I'm doing well in this, and how are you doing, Big B?
I am doing all right, man. Thank you for joining us today, talking about the Saints. Tell us again where we can catch you at, man. I just want everybody to know where to find you, so that everybody can check you out.
Sure. Best place to follow me for football stuff is on Twitter. My handle is at CJFlorida9. Also do a podcast called Chopping It Up with CJ, and I work with Football Gameplan. So definitely keep an eye out for me there.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us, man. We always have fun having you in. So let's just get right to it. The Saints this year, Derek Carr into the fold. You know, the Saints had a pretty good season last year, except for the injury bug bit them. I think their defense was top notch. We'll get into that a little bit later, but they were missing something, obviously, on offense. It's not that Andy Dalton played horrible, because he didn't play horrible. It's just that they just couldn't make enough plays, I don't think. And it's a quarterback league. You got to be able to make plays from the quarterback position, right. And he just couldn't make enough plays to win enough games. So saying that, Derek Carr jumping into the fold, is he going to be the key or the answer for the Saints on the offensive side of the football this year?
So the Saints are going to be driven almost specifically off of Derek Carr. One thing I think he brings is consistency, not just on the field, but off the field. I think in the locker room and making sure that everyone is buying in. I think that they'll buy in with Derek Carr. Unfortunately, I don't know if Jameis Winston, if that was a situation with him, but with Derek Carr, I think they're going to buy in. He's going to be the catalyst. It's on him whether the Saints are a 7-10 team or a 12-5 team completely, because they have all the pieces.
Yeah, they do. People get on Derek Carr. They bag on Derek Carr. And I was one of those guys. I got on Derek Carr a lot with the Raiders. But if you really dig in and you really look at the Raiders and their roster as a whole, the Raiders weren't good. Their offensive line was beyond atrocious. So, I mean, my goodness. So just upgrading and coming over to the Saints, just having a better line. I'm not even saying the Saints line is fantastic or anything, but just throwing some guys out there is going to be better than what the Raiders could put out there on any day, almost in his entire career, except for 1 year when they were really good. And then he ended up getting hurt at the end of the year, breaking his leg and couldn't play in a playoff
2016.
game. Yes, yep. But other than that, their line was just so bad, man. And I think he got a bad rap for a lot of that. I believe that him being able to come over to the Saints, I really think it's not a jump start to his career, because he's already a pretty good quarterback. I mean, he is. I just think it's going to be next level type of stuff, because the Saints have some weapons. They got some things for him to work with.
Yeah, I mean, you're right on the nose with how I feel about Derek Carr. I actually used to say he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. And when people hear that, they say, what are you saying? He's a top 5 quarterback? No one ever talks about him in the top half of quarterbacks. And he's around 15, 16, somewhere in there. You're correct also with what was going on with the Raiders. People also forget about this. I mean, we saw who their coach was a couple of years ago, right? Yeah. And they had that guy, but they still made the playoffs. They had some off-the-field issues, and Derek Carr stood up as a man for those guys who were going through some things. So he's going to come into a situation, be an adult. All he has to do is not be bad. That's the most interesting portion of this. He just needs to not be bad. I think he can do that. He's not going to be the elevating guy like a Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, one of those guys, but he doesn't have to be with this roster in this situation.
So in talking about the roster, just talking about the division in general, you know, with the quarterback rooms and with everybody in the division, you know, pretty much taking a hit, is this the Saints division to win this year?
It's the Saints division to win from if you're making a bet situation. Although I hate saying this. This comes from the heart. I dislike this. I think the team that's going to win this division is likely the Falcons. If you had to put some money down,
Yeah,
put it down there.
yeah,
That's where you get your scratch because they are
yeah,
like plus something, plus 600
yeah.
or something like that.
They got better.
But yeah, they got a lot better. And to be candid, the Saints didn't improve much except maybe the quarterback position being stabilized. The Saints didn't add a lot at different positions. And it's going to be a toss-up between those two teams to win the division, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Yeah. A lot of people are trying to put or not trying, but are talking about putting money on the Panthers as well. And rookie quarterback, I don't know. I believe the Bucks, their roster is horrendous. I don't think the Bucks are going to be very good at all. I just don't think they're going to be very, because the quarterback play is not going to allow them to be any good. But we'll see.
Bucks, yeah, the Bucks are going to end up, in my opinion, I think they're fine on defense. I think they still have some pieces, even though some of those guys went out. If that quarterback play doesn't hit in the first month, you can cancel Christmas. It's a 4-13 season coming for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I even go as far as to say that the Bucks, Baker Mayfield will have good numbers because they're going to be behind in so many games because he's going to turn the football over. They're going to be behind and they're going to throw to catch up. It's kind of the Jameis Winston effect is that, yeah, he threw for 5,000 yards, but if the guy's throwing pick sixes, 3 of them in the first half, of course they're going to be behind every game and playing catch up. So I get it. But yeah, getting back to the Saints, the smart money I think is on the Falcons. I just think that the Saints are a better team. Quarterback play. And I just don't trust what the Falcons are talking about putting out there as far as their quarterback. I do like their plan because, hey, they took a running back at 8. Usually that's the kiss of death. You're not taking a running back that high. On the flip side of that, though, is with the Falcons, my thing is if that's what you believe, and this is your plan, we're going to run it and we're going to pass off the run. If you believe that that's what you're going to do, and then you got this generational guy that's sitting there for you to take, if that's your plan, I like it. I really do. Having said that, though, I think the Saints have something for it because this Saints defense last year was crazy. People just don't realize it because of their record. Their defense last year was outstanding. What do you see, or I guess the better question is, how good do you think their defense can be this year?
So one of my hot takes before last season started is the Saints will finish with the number 1 defense. Now, while I was not right, the last month of the season, they were the best defense in the NFL.
Yeah,
we saw what they did to the Eagles.
Yep.
They shut down multiple teams, and until that last game of the season against the Panthers, when it's kind of like they gave up, they knew they weren't going to make the playoffs. They didn't look as good. But the Saints defense is always fresh. One of the good things that Dennis Allen does is he makes the other quarterback think and think and think to the point where they're now in a hole. Now, one of the negatives that's going to happen this year, their schedule is brutal for what the Saints struggle against. The Saints struggle against mobile quarterbacks.
Right.
We've seen the likes of Daniel Jones go into New Orleans and win a game because their defense is predicated off of making sure everyone's in the right spot, being able to attack downhill. That's why they gave Tom Brady such a time while he was in Tampa. But they have a stretch where they end up playing Anthony Richardson, backed up by then the next week playing Justin Fields. That stretch will determine who wins the division because I think they're going to lose a couple of those games to teams that otherwise people would think are low-level teams because they can't defend those quarterbacks.
Yeah, and that seems to be, I guess I shouldn't say a common problem, but that's one of the big problems. It's almost, how the league always plays catch up.
Right.
Getting these athletic quarterbacks right now, getting them out there, guys that can move around, and now the defense are playing catch up to these guys. And although, like you said, the Saints defense was good, against mobile quarterbacks, it's giving not just the Saints, it's giving everybody problems. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do. It really will. I like the Saints defense, man. Like I said, especially against the run. I think they've got something. They get after the quarterback. I just think the Saints defense is going to be really, really good. And you pair that with what Carr, like I said, just be average. You don't even have to be above average or play out of your mind or anything like that, which I do believe he's going to have some games where he does play out of his mind because the Saints have some guys. They just do. I just think they are going to be better. Looking at the coaching aspect of it, what are fans thinking about Allen as far as his per se? Because he's not a big personality guy, which that's okay. It's not, he's not a big personality guy. But what are fans talking about in terms of him? Are they happy with him? Upset? I got to believe that fans are disappointed because I think the fans thought they were going to be better last year.
Yeah, I think that Saints fans are some of the most forgiving and unforgiving at the same time people. They, in the moment, didn't want anything to do with him because, to be candid, he didn't do the greatest job as a head coach. But with that being said, we understood. First season, we're coming off of one of the best coaches in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So there were some missteps. Also didn't have the pieces of quarterback, whether it was an injured Jameis Winston or an Andy Dalton who, honestly, Andy Dalton his way into decent numbers.
Correct.
So now that they have these pieces in place, especially with a guy who can stabilize that offense at quarterback, I think it allows Dennis Allen to do what he truly wants to do, is be basically a defense coordinator again. Just make sure that defense is doing what it needs to do. The offense will be cared for, and he won't have to monitor it as harshly. And if they play decent football on that side, Dennis Allen will look like a much better head coach because the Saints will have a lot of wins.
Got it. That absolutely makes perfect sense. And like you said, Dennis Allen, he is a defensive guy. And he's been a much better defensive coordinator. Hopefully, like you said, with the pieces in place, the Saints can take another step in the right direction. Let me ask you this question. Alvin Kamara, we haven't heard anything on this. Is anything coming down? Are the Saints worried? Is he worried? What is the story with Alvin Kamara?
I will go ahead and say the Saints have to be worried because the Saints did two things. Sign Jamal Williams, and people can say, okay, you needed that filler, the guy who's going to be a thumper, right? Then they drafted a running back in the third round.
Yes, they did.
You don't do that unless you feel that something's going to happen. I think Alvin Kamara is going to get 6 games. That's kind of the standard here, right?
Right.
But they're also feeling the pressure of, is Alvin Kamara better at being like a satellite guy, basically a move piece instead of an actual every down running back? So the Saints are probably going to rotate. For fantasy football folks, you're going to hate it because the Saints are going to rotate running backs more than you'd like it. But it's probably going to actually extend Alvin Kamara's career based on getting this break and also how they're going to utilize him once he does come back.
Well, and let's just be honest. It's just what you said. When he was at his best, he had another guy running the football with him. So, that's when he was literally at his best. Look, I'm a guy that I think the running back position is being totally undervalued. I know what people say about it is that you can go get running backs and do this, but a 2-back running back system is always a good thing. At the same time, I think some of these guys deserve to get paid. Getting rid of guys at 26 years old, what are we doing? That's insane. Guys that are producing, but at the same time, you look at a Kamara. Kamara's a guy that he's not a 35 touch a game guy. Or if you make him into that, he's not going to be as effective as if he gets 20. And there's nothing wrong with 20 touches a game. That's a lot. That's a lot of touches in a National Football League game, man. People, they think that, you only got 20 touches. I'm like, that's 20 opportunities for somebody to hit you. And more times than not, they are hitting you. So, that's something. That means something, man. So just, I guess, to wrap it up, man, and again, thank you for joining us, Chris. We appreciate it so much. What do you think? I think that the Saints record this year, I really think I'm going on. I know a lot of people say higher than this. I'm saying 10-7, and that's on my low end. I think they can be better than that. I really do, just because of the division. But I'm going to play it safe. Again, this is an early prediction because training camp, injuries, all that kind of stuff still hadn't happened yet. And obviously you'll come back on before we do that again too, in training camp. But what are you thinking as of now, Saints record?
You hit the nail on the head. For me, it's 10-7, and part of it is I think the Saints are going to win some games people don't expect them to win.
Yeah.
I think they're going to beat Detroit. I actually don't think Detroit's as good as everyone's saying, but
I don't either.
I think they're going to lose games that they don't expect to lose. I think they're going to lose at least one of these 2 games in the back-to-back weeks, Colts or Bears. I think they lose the Bears game, and the Colts game is a toss-up. And I'm going 10-7. They have the ability to go 12-5, but I have the Falcons right now winning the division. It's just set up way too well for them to win.
Yeah.
But to your point, training camp, injuries, also preseason, just seeing how things gel.
Yep.
Make a final prediction around that time.
Right. I almost hate doing it this early. I mean, we're in the middle of June. I go, but at the same time, I mean, we're not doing our job if we don't at least say what we think at this point. But you know what? You got to wait until get me through training camp, get me through some preseason, then we can talk there because, 2 or 3 offensive linemen go out for somebody. That changes your fortunes a little bit. So I get that. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you for joining us today. Like I said, we will 100% have you back on once we get into training camp before the season starts and even throughout the season, man. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it as well. And I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have a good one.